Okay, so hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Default Global. This is where we connect with global first entrepreneurs and remote work experts from all around the world to share their experiences and knowledge. So, our guest today is Tory Reiss, CEO and co-founder at Equi. Tory, thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here.
Absolutely. Tory, before we start, could you briefly introduce yourself and maybe walk us through the journey that led you to where you are now?
Yeah, for sure. So, like you said, I'm the co-founder and CEO of Equi. We're a financial technology company that's, equal parts hedge fund and technology company. Although my background is not in the investing world, it's actually in the technology world. So I spent almost a decade in the Bay Area. This is my third financial technology company. My first two were in, the lending space. Closer to lending and payments than to investing. But really what brought me to where I am today is that, I've been very passionate about financial literacy for a very long time. I've taught, classes for almost a decade. And through that experience, dealing with entrepreneurs and executives and, people from all walks of life and how they think about and relate to money, that led me, to think about it a lot. And so when I found myself in a position where, I was fortunate to, finally have some liquidity in my life from my second company, it forced me down this rabbit hole of, what do I do to protect it? A lot of times people will concentrate to create wealth, and then they want to diversify to keep their wealth. And so I found myself in a position of really wanting to diversify and not being happy with the options that I found. So that's really what led me to, where we are today.
And as a CEO of Equi, you've been involved in this transforming the movement of capital, right? Could you tell us more about Equi and how it combines investment firm, like you mentioned, and this technology company aspects? What makes Equi unique in the market?
Yeah. So, there's a lot of solutions out there that act as marketplaces where, you can go to find deals. And the company is essentially, it's more a place where investments are transacted, but they themselves do not manage any investments. And so I think that's one of the key distinctions is that we actually, have an investment team, with investment professionals, and a lot of the technology we build and the models we build and the data we focus on is actually on the investing side. And that's because we felt to build a solution in this space, and we focused on, alternative investments, we needed a team capable of actually building financial products that fit the needs of our customers rather than just trying to sell what was already out there. And I think that, when it comes to, public investing or public market investing or even crypto, I think it's enough to just build the infrastructure to allow people to trade. But in our industry, in alternative investments, I think the best companies are those that can both create the technology and build the financial products themselves, to suit the needs of the customer. And I think there will be a future where there's enough financial products of high quality have been built where, there can be then just technology companies to distribute them. But I don't think we're there yet. And so we're trying to help move that forward.
Got it. And one of your core values is so-called Tikkun Olam, right? So which
Mhm.
reflects your belief in repairing the world through giving time, knowledge, and money, right? So how does
Mhm.
Equi align with this value? How do you integrate this social impact into your investment strategies? Can you talk more about it?
Yeah. Well, so it happens, I think, on a couple of different levels. I'm of the belief that it's important that we're able to, that we're aligned with our intent. Many of the people who are at the company, yes, we all want to be able to produce a return and achieve financial security for ourselves, of course, but we all, one of the things that unites the whole team is that we do feel that we have an obligation to, leave the world a little bit better than the way we found it. And early on, when you're a company that's not generating huge revenue and maybe you can't put as much like money towards causes, that means you can put time. And so, there's small things you can do early in a company's life. Like we had our first day of service just a few months ago, where, we went to a food kitchen and we spent the whole day, volunteering. And I think like activities like that, like where you're actually, you're leading with your actions, is just as important as what we hope to do, which is we hope to integrate, charitable giving into the platform ourselves. So we can give, portions of our profit towards causes we care about, but also integrate in the platform so that our customers can do that as well. So that's one element. And then what I would say is like, the other thing, the way I think about it is like a big part of why we started this company, and we did it not just as a hedge fund, but why we're also a technology company, is that if we had started it as a hedge fund, you and I wouldn't be talking right now. We wouldn't have customers that are, normal, like regular investors. We would only be selling to institutional investors, and no one would ever even really know, meaning no one outside the institutional world would know that we exist. So I think even the fact that we are, selling to self-directed individual investors, that's actually aligned with our belief that like we want to put, better products in the hands of more people.
And speaking about investors, one of the challenges investors face when exploring alternative markets is this huge number of options available, right? So from thousands of private funds. So how does, can we go a bit maybe deeper? How does Equi's technology and this data-driven approach help investors identify the most promising opportunities?
Yeah. So like I mentioned earlier, like I don't think it's helpful to have a marketplace if if investors don't know how to decide between, like, if you have 100 different options, like if I said to you, hey, here's 5, long, short volatility funds, choose the best one, you'd have a really hard time doing that. I would as well, right? And, I work in this space. But when you have a team of investment professionals who that's what all they've done their entire career, and they can actually evaluate that, a big part of what separates us is we really only want the absolute cream of the crop. And so, having a managed portfolio of these types of investments is a better solution, we think, fundamentally, than, just having a lot of options where you might not know what you're actually investing in or whether or not it's the best. And so I think, we use data, like we've gathered enough data at this point where we have data going back decades on almost 13,000 different funds. And we do a lot of quantitative analysis across everything from, correlation and their efficiency and their returns and the size of the fund itself. So like their, the efficiency given their size, things like that. And we're able to sift through it to find really, the top 1%. And then it's within that universe that we're then actually starting the real diligence process, which can last 3 months for a single investment, or more. And so that level of in-depth, we think that's what it takes to like ensure that you're getting the best. And, you're not really seeing that when you're in a marketplace and you're just kind of, guessing.
Okay, yeah, it sounds cool, and I guess it sounds different from what we have in the market, right? So, okay, so maybe let's talk about your team, right? So, as an experienced founder and CEO, you have been successful in attracting top talent to Equi. So, what principles do you follow when hiring early employees, right? How do you ensure this alignment in vision, shared values, and this functional expertise? Can you talk
Yeah.
more about it?
Yeah. I think early on, we say it as like, you really need to find missionaries, not mercenaries. To me, a missionary is someone that joins a company because they believe in the mission and what you're doing, and they're not necessarily driven by, who's the highest bidder in the market. Because it's always the case that there will be a company usually large corporation or, a much more advanced stage startup that will pay more, but the experience that you have is going to be very different. You're going to learn less, most likely. You're going to have less autonomy, and you're going to have less of an impact in really, driving the business forward. And so, I think looking for characteristics of people who, really are driven by what you're doing and why you're doing it. And early on, you oftentimes hire just really smart, capable generalists who you can say, hey, here's a problem, go run at it. And they go and they figure it out. And I think that changes because as you grow, you start to need more specialists. But in those early hires, it's I think you really want to hire for intelligence and potential more than experience, because a lot of the problems are also going to be new and going to require people that can just think critically and figure things out.
And it was somewhere in your interviews, I guess, where you mentioned this unique approach that you have approach of hiring contractors first and then transitioning them to full-time employees, right? So could you share more about this approach? How does it work, and what advantage we might have with this approach?
Yeah, we don't do this for all roles, but there's a few examples where, one example I can give you is that, when I originally hired, I hired an EA contract. That's very common, but she did incredible work. She was, very focused, very detail oriented, understood the context. She started doing far more than just, helping me manage, my time, and she became much more like a chief of staff. And as she was doing more and more, we moved her towards a biz ops role, and we actually helped her also relocate because she was overseas, and we helped her relocate to the same time zone so that we could be better aligned. And if you look today, she's gone from, EA to associate product manager, because she had said from the very beginning that her goal was to get into product. And we supported her in her free time. She was taking UX design courses, she was taking product courses, she was doing SQL, she was taking all of this, on herself to take the professional development in addition to her normal tasks. But the flexibility of starting as a contractor, you can have 4 or 5 people start as contractors. And if they prove themselves and earn the trust of the team, make a path towards full-time work. And then I would say what's even more exciting is to say, not only can be a path towards full-time work, but if they're really exceptional, we can create a path towards, an internal transfer or moving into other specialties within the organization. And so I think having paths like that is important, because the burden the overhead to hire a contractor, in my opinion, is lower than to hire an employee. You need a little bit less upfront vetting, because it essentially, you'll know a lot more through that, first month of the contract than you would through interviewing. And so that gives you a way to sort of hey, we need someone right now, so we're going to hire, we're going to do 1 or 2 screens and hire a contractor, and then we can decide if we want to keep them on or convert them even over time. And I think it's also great for the contractors, because they get to see what the organization is like, see what the team is like, and if they align with the work that we're doing.
Yeah, that's a very cool approach. And I checked your website, and you have a number of openings right now, and all of them are on site, right? So, but have you ever thought about hiring employees outside of the US and maybe benefiting from local talent who might be a part of some, local fintech unicorn, wealth tech unicorn, I don't know, and who might already have who might already gained this expertise that is hard to acquire in such a competitive markets as the US. Have you ever thought about this?
Yeah, we did. We actually started remote and have transitioned towards a hybrid culture. So today, I think of us actually as default in person with flexible work arrangements. And so there are a couple employees who are fully remote, and actually our entire engineering team is fully remote. But then everybody else, most of the business functions, product, design, those are in person. And so, again, I think this is a lot of this is a preference thing. The entire team that's co-located today, all those people enjoy the energy of getting together, working collaboratively. Like they don't want to necessarily work from home. And that's not what suits them. And, I can only speak for myself, personal preference. Like I love the energy of being in the office with everyone. That being said, when we hire on the engineering team or when we hire for remote roles, we're very, very closely vetting for people who have a proven ability to work, remotely, be self-directed. And I think it does take a very different type of individual to excel in a fully remote role than it does someone in an in-person environment. I don't think it's actually interchangeable. And so I think what's nice about our culture is that we do have flexible work arrangements where people work from home, on Mondays and Fridays. But if they also have a sick kid, they can work from home, or if they're visiting in-laws, they can, work remotely for a week. And we accommodate that type of flexibility. And the culture is built around supporting our remote employees in addition to in-person. So it does give us the ability to look at each role and think, what is going to make this role most successful? Where does it need to be? Is it remote? Is it in Miami? Is it in New York? And then we can make that decision.
Yeah, that's a very great that's just great that you have this flexibility. So Equi has experienced this significant growth, going from only 3 co-founders, right, to a team of how many? 40 in just 12 months, right? So
No,
I'm
we're only 24 people. I'm actually proud of the fact that we are not a lot of people. A
oh
lot of
really?
people use headcount as like a glamour metric. To me, the ultimate glamour metric is revenue per headcount. If we can do the work of 100 people with only 20, or we're able to produce enormous amounts of revenue with very few people, that to me is a point of pride. That's true leverage, as opposed to saying like, oh, look at how many people we have, as some sort of measure of success. Because I don't think that that necessarily equates.
Mm-hmm. That's cool. And speaking about growth and expansion, then, given that your company operates on this international level, right, and has successfully
Mhm.
acquired number of clients outside of the US, could you maybe elaborate on the complexity of growing um, your business globally and how you're expanding your customer reach at this international level? Let's call it like that.
Yeah. Yeah. So one area where we are default global is our customer base. So from day one, we've actually had customers all around the world, because as it ends up, some of the greatest demand for these types of products come outside the US, where people want diversification. Not only are these products world class in the United States, but internationally. And what's nice about alternatives is it's actually a bit easier to accommodate international investors and international tax law using alternative investments than it is with public securities. So it's actually the best of both worlds, where it allowed us to be, to serve clients in, whether they're in Hong Kong, Singapore, or LATAM or Europe. Those are turning out to be some of our largest customer bases. And it provides excellent diversification from what's going on in their local economy, but also even diversification from the US and US economy, because that's the benefit of these investments, is we're ultimately designing products and finding strategies that perform across all different market environments, whether it's going up, sideways, or down. That's our goal.
Got it. And with this current economic downturn and these challenges that it brings, like such as layoffs, this reduced investor activity, many companies are looking for ways to I guess cut their cost and maybe looking for alternative markets. So from your perspective, what companies can do to reduce costs while still maintaining growth in the current market? Don't you think that this global business expansion might help with this?
Yeah, I even had a conversation with a founder who's in our space. He's in the real estate sector specifically, whereas we're more focused on hedge funds and liquid alternatives. But we have very similar businesses. And he's Argentinian, and he has a 30-person engineering team and product team in Argentina. And he let go of all of his US-based engineers and product hires, because his cost basis there is probably 30% of what it is here in the United States. But what he and I discussed, and what I tend to agree with him on, is that the only thing that enables him to do that is his CTO is based in Argentina. They've started multiple companies together. They have an office that people go into. So what's interesting is it's not actually remote, because there is a full office and everyone goes to it, and there's a full culture and there's leadership, boots on the ground. And so I look at that, and to me, I think that is a very intelligent form of expansion, where he's leveraging his strengths, his connections and relationships. He's native Argentinian, speaks the language, knows the culture, and it's very different. I think that, like, if you're going to invest in international expansion, doing so with someone that you really trust, that can have boots on the ground and can, like, be in charge of those operations, I think goes a long way.
Got it. And with this economic downturn that has led to increased volatility in public markets, right? So how does Equi's investment strategy reassure investors about this safeguarding their wealth and reaching financial freedom even during
Yeah.
this tough time? Can you
Yeah.
talk more about it?
Yeah. Simply put, I think a lot of people underestimate how valuable it is to avoid losing money. Everyone's very focused on, how do I make 100x or how do I make 20x? But the reality is, if you as an investor can design a portfolio and put your money into investments that, when everybody else is losing 20, 30% or more, where you don't lose money and you're compounding from a higher and higher cost basis, you are going to end up so much further ahead due to the nature of compounding investments. And so that's why we have a lot of pride that the investments on our platform, even in a really tough year like last year, they were not losing money. They were performing well. They were low volatility. And so that's why we think our investments are there to protect and compound wealth, as opposed to a focus on, we're going to get you, 200% or 1,000% returns. Like, that is not our focus. There are places you can go to do that, but we tend to think of that as more like lottery or like casino type investing. Whereas, that's more like, to me, that's more gambling than it is investing. And what we bring to our platform is more investing in the true sense, where we really focus on not losing money and compounding from a higher and higher cost basis.
Sorry, and probably my final question. As an investor, you focus on hedge fund investing and this leveraging technology to beat the market, right? So how can entrepreneurs and maybe tech leaders incorporate the similar strategies to drive growth in their business, not specifically maybe in the financial market?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think the best way right now to grow amidst volatility is to be very, very conscious of your costs and to be forecasting very conservatively. And if you can be the company that survives, resources in the form of, employees, labor, things like that, like, do become less expensive, more attainable. There's less competition in recessions and in crisis. So there, in many ways, are more opportunity. But the only way you can take advantage of that opportunity is if you're alive. So I would say focusing on survival and being conservative is what's going to allow you to then, when the large opportunity presents itself during a crisis, it will allow you to capitalize. If, however, you're spending, overspending and like going very aggressive, it can be actually more difficult during these periods of time to capitalize, because it kind of puts you with your back against the wall.
Got it. Okay, so I guess we're good. So thanks a lot, Tory, for sharing your insights on how Equi is currently transforming the financial market, on your hiring strategy and principles that you follow, and on international business expansion. Yeah, thanks a lot. We wish you and Equi all the best in your journey. Appreciate the time very much.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me.